Hey everyone, welcome to this week's podcast. My name is Rany. I've been a writer for RetroRGB for a bit over a year now, and I'll be filling in for Bob this week. We've got some very cool stuff to talk about, so let's get to it. First up, Artemio just released the MDFourier toolkit for PC Engine and TurboGrafx 16 consoles. So for those who don't know, MDFourier is a preservation and analysis software specifically designed for audio signals coming out of classic consoles. It has been available for a few months now for the Genesis/Mega Drive. So in short, the software allows you to compare two versions of a console's audio output and measure the resulting data in accurate scientific terms. So from a consumer's point of view, the software helps determine if the subject console needs a recap, for example, and if replacing the caps actually makes a difference. So the user can capture two takes from the tone generator software before and after replacing the caps, and then analyze them and see if that actually made any difference at all. In most cases, it will, especially with those Duo consoles. Even the last model released, the Duo RX. And from a developer's point of view, MDFourier helps extract audio waves from original hardware and implement those into stuff like emulators, upgrade boards like the Sega Triple Bypass, FPGA cores like with the Mr. Project, and so those will sound exactly like the original console was originally intended to sound. So you can grab MDFourier now from the link in Bob's post. Just copy the PCE file to your ROM card or burn the ISO image and run it on your console and start testing. Of course, you will still need a decent audio card and the custom-tailored MDFourier software for Windows PCs. But I also highly recommend you watch Bob's detailed video that he did a while ago about the whole process. So a huge thanks to Artemio for this wonderful audio solution. I mean, I've personally used the Fourier analysis before in college on some classical music instruments, and I never thought in a million years that I would be using it again, but this time on my favorite classic consoles. Yeah, awesome. And speaking of Artemio, Bob just conducted an in-person interview with him recently, and let me tell you, this was one awesome interview. I mean, seriously, even if you're remotely interested in retro hardware, give this interview a watch or a listen, and I'm sure you'll learn a thing or two or 100 from Artemio's deep knowledge. It's crazy how many people have been using his 240p test suite for so many years. I mean, I personally know professional modders and technicians who rely on the test suite for most of their work. And I'm sure many of us first learned to calibrate our monitors and TVs using the test suite and checked for lag whenever we get the chance to, right? So thanks again to Artemio for the great work he has done for the community for the past decade. Now this is pure awesome. Dan, aka Citrus 3000 PSI, with the help of Minner Beer, yeah, I'm sorry, we all butcher names at RetroRGB, just announced an optical drive emulator, an ODE, for the GameCube called the GC Loader. It's mostly a plug-and-play SD card-based device that requires just a bit of soldering. I mean, it's just a flex cable that lays over through hole pins, so you only need to worry about soldering the pins at the right temperature. So you won't have to, so it won't actually cause any damage to the cable itself. It is also highly recommended to use the amazing Swiss software with the GC Loader and take advantage of all the awesome features that it has to offer. 400 titles have been tested so far, and everything seems to be working perfectly. If there's any issues that might pop up later on, the ODE's firmware can be easily updated. Loading times have been also reduced, and the GC loader supports full audio streaming, an option that has been absent from many other solutions. Anyway, this sounds exactly like the device I've been waiting for. Yes, I do play my GameCube games on the Wii, but come on, with the GC video solutions, RetroRGB component cable for me. And now this, my GameCube will get a lot more playtime. The GC loader is priced at $80 US and will be available for purchase in December. For all who have been waiting for their GBA Consolizer to ship, Jason from GameTech US recently posted an update video showing off his progress with current orders, as well as a detailed overview of the brand new redesign of the assembled case. Woozle, the project's main developer, and Jason made a bunch of interesting cosmetic changes to the assembled version of the GBA Consolizer, and they are listed in the article. Jason also announced that there will be a speedrunner firmware similar to the one available on the Game Boy interface. It's still in beta phase for now, and it will unfortunately cause some problems with some TVs, as the GBA's original refresh rate is set at 59.7 Hz, which is not HDMI compliant, compared to the original firmware, which will set the GBA's refresh rate at 60 Hz. I would love to test that beta firmware on my VGA CRT that definitely supports the Consolizer's native resolution of 1280 by 720. I mean, a digital-to-digital solution on a CRT with no lag, that would be fantastic. Anyway, check out GameTech's video for so much more details about his progress with orders and all the changes Woozle and him made to the Consolizer case. Bob just reviewed Mike Chi's recently released RGB2 Comp and Comp2RGB devices. There will be a much more detailed video coming out soon, but I wanted to briefly describe each device's main function. First, the RGB2 Comp, priced at $60, converts RGB through SCART to YPBPR component video. Bob tested it with resolutions up to 480p and everything worked perfectly, just like the Shiny Bow option, which can sometimes cost over $100. One scenario where the RGB2 comp proves to be super useful is using an existing RGB setup, like hooking up 8 consoles to a SCART switcher, then outputting to a consumer-grade CRT that has component inputs and no SCART. Second, Comp2RGB is priced at $70, and it converts YPBPR to RGB. And it apparently works great with signals up to 480p as tested by Bob, although he believes that 720p and 1080i should work as fine. The Comp2RGB converts component video signal to RGB C-Sync, meaning you won't have to worry about incompatibility with Extron devices. I'm personally more interested in the Comp2RGB because, just like Bob described in his article, I'm aiming for a fully automated setup. I want to be able to plug my PS2, my original Xbox, my GameCube and my Wii to the G-Comp switch, and then connect that into the Comp2RGB, and then output RGB through SCART to my SCART switcher, and then finally output RGB to my monitor and OSSE. Complicated a bit, but awesome, trust me. And it is always highly recommended to use high quality cables like the ones that HD Retrovision offer. Anyway, Bob will have a much more detailed video coming out soon, I hope, about both products, so yeah, look out for that. It looks like there's a new backlit screen for the Bandai Wonderswan color. The Chinese guy on YouTube made an installation video and briefly reviewed the new LCD screen. The video claims the screen is a pixel-perfect integer scale of the original screen and even includes the same status bar on the side. But since the original Wonderswan screen runs at an odd 75 Hz refresh rate, I highly doubt that this new screen runs at higher than 60, but I might be mistaken, I don't know. But unfortunately, the single AA battery life will drain much faster after the new screen is installed. You will also lose even more battery life when using the Flashmaster ROM card. And this is by no means a no-cut mod. In order for the screen to sit snugly in the casing, a good amount of trimming is required. And like Bob said, what if a new option comes out later on that doesn't require any modification? You would have unfortunately ruined your system. But all in all, if you're a fan of the Wonderswan and its library and own more than one, then yeah, go ahead and give this new screen a try. Maybe that will fit your needs until a new solution shows up. Moby Strip Tech is now selling Vertex Virtual Tap video out kits and Servo emulator chips. First, the Servo emulator works best in broken Virtual Boy units. So let me explain. The Servo emulator chip actually tricks the system into thinking that the mirrors and motors inside of it are still fully functional, while they're actually not. So a consoleized Virtual Boy could be built by combining the Servo emulator chip and the Virtual Tab and the Virtual Boy motherboard, obviously. So you could get rid of all the inside mechanism and outer plastic shell too. But as Bob stated in his article, please do not cannibalize perfectly working Virtual Boys for consoleization purposes. Just get a broken one and then maybe apply the fix. And as you may or may not know, the Virtual Tap comes in two different versions, a VGA line doubled outputting version and a 240p RGB outputting version. You could also install two Virtual Taps in one system for dual output. That's awesome. Check out Moby Strip Tech website for more info about both products. And don't forget to check out Greg Collins' awesome 3D printed ports specifically designed for the Virtual Tap no-cut mod. This is not news related, but Chris, aka Beyond Pixels, just wrote a great informative article about yet another obscure PAL exclusive console, the Amstrad GX-4000. So this console, which is based on the Amstrad CPC 8-bit computer series, was released in the early 90s and had to compete with the likes of the much more superior Sega Mega Drive and Super Nintendo. So it had no chance of surviving a full generation cycle and ended up selling 150,000 units and had under 30 games released for it. Those games were also compatible with its computer counterparts. Something that has always fascinated me about the GX4000 in particular is the SCART port on the back of the system. I mean, I used to see SCART connectors on VCRs and Laserdisc players back in the day, but never on a console. Also, while the standard European version outputs sync on composite RGB, the French version, which I'm assuming is SECAM, outputs C-Sync. That's crazy. Anyway, give the article a read to find out so much more about this interesting little console. The C64 video enhancement by Copper Dragon is a YPBPR and RGB Sync on Green FPGA based solution for the Commodore 64. So due to hardware limitations, especially with the video interface chip 2, the C64 could only output RF through RCA, composite, and S-video through the 8-pin DIN. I know the S-Video situation has been rectified over the years, but having a modern, clean 240p and 480p solution is the way to go now. The video enhancement won't affect the old outputs, except for S-Video, as it bypasses the onboard encoder for improved quality. There are a few palettes to select from, just like with the NES RGB, and it's fully compatible with the OSSC and RetroTINK 2X. The mod can be applied to both NTSC and PAL models, and its firmware can be easily updated. It's priced at under €100, and the only way to acquire a C64 Component RGSB kit at the moment is by filling a form over at videogameperfection.com. Orders will be carried in a waiting list fashion. I'll probably install the kit in my NTSC Commodore 64 at some point. I mean, I haven't turned the poor thing on for, I don't know, probably 8 years, but having a modern output solution will make the overall experience much better. Please check out Vanessa's detailed article about the video enhancement mod that she wrote when it first got announced. That's it for this week. I hope you guys enjoyed the episode as much as I did. And if you can't tell that I enjoyed, just go back and count how many times I said awesome. I want to thank my wife Carla for editing the video. I want to thank the RetroRGB awesome team, family. I'll probably see you guys in the next Writers Roundup. Until then, keep on checking RetroRGB.com for retro gaming news and updates within the community. Thanks everyone. See ya.